Ladies and gentlemen, boys and ghouls, to all of our non-binary friends, to everyone on the spectrum and in between, my name is Ken Stagnick, and this is another episode of The Shutter Show. This is my co-host,
David Marlowe.
And David, how you doing today?
Doing all right today. Doing all right. I got myself, just because the job hunt continues, because the scenic shop can't afford lumber right now to run a full crew.
Nobody can afford lumber right now, right? Like, wood is the most expensive thing in the world. My understanding is it's like that.
Yeah. Lumber and construction material is now the gold standard. Given that the housing market is still booming, strangely enough, it's a weird freaking thing. But yeah, I'm pretty much going to be searching for some new work. But in the meantime, I spent today working on your groomsman gift.
Hey.
For my upcoming wedding with my lovely, wonderful fiance. So yeah, been doing that today. But yeah, how about yourself, good sir? How have you been?
Oh, not too bad. Still settling in here in Colorado, getting my bearings. I am currently house sitting while the fam is out of town. So it is a little wild moving into a house that it's just me here. Like, it's just a lot of. It's just a lot of space, which, oh, hello, pups. Hello.
This guy just wants all the attention right now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. Yeah, no, I
go on.
Yeah. Well, no, with the whole family out of town, both of the dogs that we have here are Freddie, of course, always wants attention, but Yue in particular is very like, but what happened to all the people who normally give me attention? Now there's just you, scruffy man. What do you hey, like, just like, we'll just walk up and just like put her head on, like, in my hand, and it's just like, you're gonna pet this now. Oh, is that what I'm doing right? Okay, I guess that's what I'm doing right now. David, what movie are we talking about today? What did the good people of Instagram make us do?
Well, we took a poll, and I believe, what was the poll between? It was between Caveat, which is a Shudder original, and between the OG Night of the Living Dead. And as you can see from the movie playing behind me, Night of the Living Dead won out, though it was actually a lot closer than I expected it to be.
Really?
Like, I think it was a difference between like 2 votes.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, more motivation to everyone out there to go on the socials and engage with our social media, because, it's not like, let's be clear. It's not like this went badly or something like that. But, it turns out that your engagement can actually make a huge difference in what we do with the show. And I'm really glad that we got to watch Night of the Living Dead, because it had been a while since I had revisited it. And there's just so many things with Night of the Living Dead to talk about. To say that it is influential is to, like, misunderstand what the word influential, like, meant originally, because this movie is like every trope. It invented a whole genre. It invented the word zombie. It put the word zombie into the lexicon, despite the fact that it never uses the word zombie. It is responsible for 2 entire franchises of its own, on top of all of its ripoffs. It is the high, it is the low, it is peak art, it is also peak exploitation. I almost can't say enough about Night of the Living Dead. So thank you to all of our Instagrammies. There we go. That's what I'm calling them. That's canon now. Yeah. Our Instagrams. There we go. Yeah. For giving me an opportunity to go back and rewatch this, because, oh man, is this movie awesome.
No, as you and I like to say, this movie slaps so damn hard. It is, and also want to apologize to everyone for it taking so long for us to get this episode out. It has been a lot of things came up. We tried to record last night, and that recording went terribly. Everything that could go wrong went wrong. Took us forever for Ken to hear me on the mic. Just a lot of technical problems. So thank you all for waiting ever so patiently. We're trying to be a little bit more consistent on which days we get these episodes out. But yeah, like outside of that, like I am very happy that I got to revisit this because not only like at once I watched Night of the Living Dead, kind of like Texas Chainsaw, I decided to do another deep dive and at least watch the Of the Dead trilogy.
Like so Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead,
yeah.
Land of the Dead. And then what's the
they did a found footage one called Diary of the Dead.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that's the one that I'm like
terrible.
It's not right. It's not as bad. Like it is one of those in like because the rest are so good.
There's an exposition lady literally trying to like spoon feed you the meaning of everything happening.
Yeah, I mean it is one of the so all right. I want to give Diary of the Dead the same kind of leeway that you gave American Werewolf in Paris, where you're like, look, okay.
The nostalgia was pretty heavy with that one, though.
Like they were trying to do something new. It didn't quite work. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. Like, hey, like, cause like it's also one of those like Romero's like 75 or something when he's doing Diary of the Dead. Like
yeah, he was cranking them out towards the end. Like
really was. Like I'm glad I'm glad he got one more turn at the bat, even if it necessarily wasn't as good as the other times we had seen him. You know, it's
yeah. And like found footage, I'm glad found footage was really popular.
Yeah, I'm glad I got to see him do it one more time. You know, but it's not awful. Like
to be fair, it's not awful.
Like all right, so real talk, real tea. Dario Argento is the dude who should have like hung it up kind of a while ago. Like I can't even bring myself to watch our recent Dario Argento movie because like it's just like he's dead. Leave him alone. Hey. He did his thing back in the day. He's, you know, like he's
paid his dues.
Yeah, he paid his dues. Like there's so much. Just leave him alone. Yeah. Like let him do. You know.
Though in Diary of the Dead, Julian Richings is in that one too.
I mean, you get those like Walter Hill is going to be coming back to direct a Western, and I really hope it's good. Nothing would tickle me greater than to find out that like 95-year-old Walter Hill still has the chutzpah to make a badass Western. That said, like almost nobody makes a movie good when they're that old. Like it just like Walter, but then again, George Miller is like 1,000 years old and he made Fury Road, which, let's be clear, is beyond dope. Like, is so good, it's infuriating. Like, and mind you, and this is also a dude whose first movie, just like Night of the Living Dead, there was not such a thing, really, as, like, the post-apocalyptic movie before Mad Max. There wasn't a thing as a zombie movie before George Romero. So no matter what happens in their career, they did something incredible, which was invent like a whole style of story. So that's our big roundabout that I brought back and brought that all together, because that's what makes Night of the Living Dead. Because before this, zombie movies were not a thing. The only thing, like zombie movies were like a Haitian, like a Haitian it was a very specific thing. It was,
Yeah.
you drug a person who has been tricked have been taking these hallucinogens, who think they're dead. They come back from dead, and then George Romero took that idea, or just took the Z word, I guess, to quote Shaun of the Dead, and blended it with the EC Comics idea of the ghoul, because that's what you actually see in the Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead movies, Diary of the Dead, Day of the Dead, any of them. Like, you are seeing a zombie flesh-eating ghouls, and that because there's the movie Night of the Zombie. There's like one or two movies that like flirt with the word zombie, by that I mean like flirt with the word zombie, like it shows up in the movie once or twice. Curse the Zombie.
One of the things that you had talked about in our last episode, episode that went wrong was that Night of the Living Dead, or at least the term of the dead, is public domain, is what you're saying?
No, okay. So there's a lot that went on with the history of Night of the Living Dead. First and foremost, they forgot to put the copyright on the movie. So as a result of just how, for lack of a better term, like stupid copyright law works, like copyright works as long as you say, I own this copyright. That's literally all you have to do. You don't technically need to you don't have to authorize it with anything. There's not like a company that you need to call. Like, there's not, like, the whole point of copyright is that all you need to do is assert it for it to be a thing. But they didn't. It was like they did everything else, but they just forgot to put the copyright on it. So therefore, as a result, anybody who had who had a print of the movie could show the movie. They did not have to share it with anything. Another similar example of this is part of the reason that It's a Wonderful Life is as popular as it is.
Yeah.
Because they forgot. So again, they forgot to copyright the movie. Now, someone eventually figured out that they had copyrighted the soundtrack, but that didn't stop them from essentially playing the movie on television for a solid 20 years with just no, it was just one of those things but you didn't, but you didn't say it. The whole point of copyright is that it was released there wasn't a big official process. The whole point was to create a way for artists to be ultimately protected. There was no official artists association you had to go to. You didn't have to be part of a union. You didn't have to do it basically the idea was, if you are just any dummy who went and wrote a book, all you had to say is, you can't steal my book, and people can't steal your book.
Yeah, that story checks out pretty well.
Yeah, that's the way that you'd want the system.
Yeah.
And
hey, I made this thing. I would prefer to get credit for it.
And Night of the Living Dead forgot. So as a result, you could just show it anywhere.
Yeah.
Legally.
Well, and that's also, I think, because originally they once filming and editing was done, they were starting to shop it around for distribution. I think they took it to Columbia Pictures at one point. One of the ending changed, which is ridiculous. They refused, and so they passed on it. And so I think, God, who was it that ended up? Walter Reed. So I think eventually it was an independent distributor, Walter Reed Incorporated, I think is how it goes, who ended up doing distribution. I guess it wouldn't it have been Walter Reed who would need to manage the copyright?
Well, so
does distribution manage that?
well, no. So, like, if it's a piece of art, you have to put it on the art, and it's not like so. You have to put it like it has to appear on a frame of the film, and it doesn't. And they released it without that. And as a result, if you have a copy without the copyright, and it is not a example of you removing it because that would then be illegal. No, you can't prove that it was there in the first place. So you can just play it. You know what I mean? Like, it would just be like if you wrote the most popular song in the world, but you didn't tell anybody it was you. Like, everybody can just play the song. You can't just then like show up later and be like, oh, but I won all the money. And you're like, well, no, you didn't. You kind of had to say it at the beginning, and you didn't. And so that's and as a result, like, that is why this movie also got as widely played as it did, because like if you were a small independent movie theater, you could show this on a Saturday night, not pay anything. But, you know, if there's only a handful of movies that you can get away with showing free,
you can play it as many times as you wanted to.
So as a result, it also kind of became a cult movie. And I would say, like, part of the reason that this movie, I think, plays so well at midnight is that it is a high and low masterpiece. It is a combination of like old school, old timey music, spooky vibe. Like there's a real old fashioned quality to Night of the Living Dead. But at the same time, it is also modern as hell. Like, this movie is 1968. Like, one of those things that one of the things about the lore of this movie that I have never, ever bought is that George Romero said that they just hired Dwayne Jones because he was the best actor in their group. And they never thought once about what it would mean for an African-American man to be the lead in this movie. And like,
yeah, what was it I said to you? I'm like it's the filmmaker equivalent of saying, I don't see color.
I guess. Like, it's like, okay, you might not see color, but you understand other people do, right? I mean, mind you, they're making this movie in Pennsylvania. This movie is not made in Manhattan. It's not made in Los Angeles. Just also, like, very different cities.
Yeah.
But like, you know what I mean? Like, this is a movie. Like, I have been to this exact cemetery. I have driven through it. I have walked through it. I spent a little bit of time in Pennsylvania, and when we drove across the state, I was like, all right, just a quick minute. I'm going to need to stop here for a minute because, like, it's the cemetery from Night of the Living Dead. And it is not in the middle of a city. It is rural.
In the butt-fuck middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and like, mind you, it was rural now. Like, it was rural when I drove through it like 6-7 years ago, let alone whatever it was back then, which would have been more rural, because it's not like, it's not like Pittsburgh got smaller. I don't think that's how big cities work.
Yeah. Now, Ken, you've seen the movie We Were Soldiers, right?
Yes.
So like the whole thing, like with Romero saying like he just hired him because he was the best actor. Like, I think to me, it's like the equivalent of writing the character in We Were Soldiers who didn't know what whites only meant.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It's the idea of like you expect us to believe that you didn't at least think through what this might mean, if anything, at least just for this actor, Dwayne Jones, who, from what I understand, like wanted to actually like add at least some variation of dialogue that at some point in the film addressed his relationship. Yeah, just like his relationship to the antagonist in this film. Oh gosh, what's that character's name?
It's not Rob Corddry.
No, it's not. Harry Cooper. Yeah, yes. Carl Hardman playing Harry Cooper. So he was kind of the antagonist, the guy who's always kind of just like disagreeing with his character Ben. And it's just like the idea of like, no, there's some like there's racial tension there, like for sure.
Like there's kind of like it would like everything about that interaction makes sense if you just acknowledge like he's a balding white guy and this is a handsome black man and he's pretty mad about it. Otherwise, he's just a stone cold lunatic who's just arguing with the only sensible person in the house. Like it only works if you just acknowledge that, like, well, yeah, he's a shitty racist. Of course, that's why he's acting this way. Because yeah, Dwayne Jones is literally doing the only sensible thing.
Yeah. All it takes is Dwayne Jones to be like, man, I've dealt with people like him all my life.
Yeah.
But like Dwayne Jones and I think, and even in the what was like the 40th anniversary edition of Night of the Living Dead, which has a great little documentary attached to it. There's an interview where he says he wishes that Dwayne Jones was still alive because he'd have him on to sort of talk about how he felt through this whole process. Because Dwayne Jones even said, "Is like I don't think you understand what it means to see a black man strike a white woman."
Yeah, or a white man, like and like that would be something that people would be talking about today, let alone 1968. Like, and there's part of me that is like that understands why Romero didn't want that to be the only discussion that was happening around the movie. But at the same time, I can also understand where Dwayne Jones is like, but bro, can I talk about like how like wildly revolutionary this idea is? Like, yeah, it's you know, I mean, Romero's not with us anymore. Dwayne's not with us anymore. I would love nothing more. I completely agree with what you were just saying. Like, I would have loved for Dwayne to have gotten to the point where he was old enough that he didn't quite care anymore and was like, all right. So it turned out we 100% knew what I was doing, and this was rad, and I'm so glad I got to do it. And like, yeah, like, and it was cool. And I was like, are you sure I get to hit a white person? And they were like, yes, do it. Like,
yeah, and he did a few other films after this, though. I think he was primarily a theatrical actor, so he was a stage actor.
Yeah,
more than
everything
anything.
I've read is yeah, like he did well for himself, just not, you know, on celluloid.
Yeah, no, and I think that's kind of how that's sort of how he preferred it. Was this the one who was like visiting family? He happened to be in town when they were shooting this, and that's why they were able to get him. Or I'm thinking, no, I think that might be a different actor. Yes,
no. Dwayne. Every story that I have heard is that like Dwayne was like their repertory guy. That they came up doing theater together. They did local theater together, and in fact, yeah, like let's be clear. Like, I'm not saying that Dwayne wasn't the best actor that George Romero and them knew. I just don't believe that they didn't see color completely. I don't believe that you shot this movie for a couple of weeks and then edited it, and then at some point you were like, you know, it's crazy. You know, our movie stars a black guy, like, and that's not a thing that happens.
You know what our film doesn't have in common with every other movie.
You know, I was looking at our movie, and our lead character is a different color. Weird. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's different, and we didn't notice it the whole time we were shooting the movie.
Well, ain't this just a breath of fresh air?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, isn't this? Yeah, but
this, of course, is coming from like two like straight white men, so like I can only imagine the conversations that happened between Dwayne and a lot of people on set.
Yeah, like
it's one of the many fascinating layers of this film. Which, and Ken, you've seen the '90s remake, correct?
Yes, the one directed by Tom Savini. Yes.
Yeah. What was your opinion on sort of the changes that were made in that?
It is fixing a lot of things that aren't necessarily problems. It is the Night of the Living Dead remake, I think, is a very interesting retreading of like, I'm really glad that it exists. I'm really glad that I've seen it. It is very interesting. It is wildly different than the Night of the Living Dead, like the original. The original is so many things at once. But I think the thing that I like the most about the Night of the Living Dead, the original version, is how much it wants to be an art film, how much it is not apologizing for being a horror movie, how much is not it, like the primary visual influence on Night of the Living Dead is Orson Welles' Othello, which is, I mean, if you're talking about 1968 and you're like, hey man, I'm going to take some easy comic stuff and we're going to take a camera out in like the middle of nowhere. And like me and a couple of my friends, we're going to make a movie that's like EC comics, but like also Othello. I love everything about it. Like I love the big swing. Like I love the pretentiousness of it. It's what makes it work. And like that's like there's so much of that in this. Like the music is so old timey.
Yeah, and all on a shoestring budget. I think like ultimately that came down to like $114,000
in like 1968 money, which is nothing. Yeah. Like I mean that's to be fair, that's also 3 times like as much as Blair Witch Project, but like this is not a lot of money. This is not like you can see every time they put a light in this movie because every light is just like a big ass halogen work light. You're like, oh, where's the light? And you're like, well, you see the shadow on the wall? It's the opposite of that because that's how light works. And I don't know if you guys know this. You need all the light. And you need all the light with black and white footage, which
means get out the Bosco chocolate syrup for the blood.
I mean, the whole point of black and white is that like you need way less light than you do with color. And you can still see there's the one light that they have because it has to be so bright. It can only go in one spot. Like they have no money. They have no time. They have no nothing. And Romero is out here talking about Othello. And I love it because like it creates this wonderful dynamic. It creates this wonderful contrast. Like this is another movie like Texas Chainsaw Massacre that we talked about last week, where I would argue it kind of looks better the worse it looks. The higher the contrast, like the grittier it gets, the less dynamic range it has, the more.
Even the remastered version of this, even the 40th anniversary edition, you still see a lot of old film grain. Like,
I mean, like I have the Criterion Collection transfer. It's as beautiful, as pristine, as cleaned up, as perfect as it is ever going to look. And I think it probably looks better on shit VHS. Like it smells more appropriate. It hits harder. It slaps more. It is not a movie like it's not a Greg Toland movie. It's not Citizen Kane. The whole point is not that it oozes, textures and grays. It is not a movie that works well in grays. It's a movie that works well in black and white. Like, it wants to be on fire and in shadow and nothing kind of in between. It's not that kind of a movie.
Yeah. And it's really interesting when you see this compared to its sequels, Dawn of the Dead and Day of the Dead, with a far higher budget. And I would say, like, as the sequels progressed, it was more about, granted, I will say, like, those two movies are brilliant, and the scripts themselves and the characters are fascinating, and there's definitely a theme to each of them. But the big hook that brought audiences into these new ones were, great, how creative can we get with these zombie kills? How creative can we get with the gore and bringing on Tom Savini? And I think Land of the Dead, was Land of the Dead Tom Savini as well doing the gore, or was that his predecessor?
No. Land of the Dead is Tom Savini on there. You'll also find Edgar Wright and Simon Pegg in there as zombies in that. There's a lot of Land of the Dead is what's a good way to put this? So, like, Night of the Living Dead is 100% punk rock, like 100%.
Yeah.
Dawn of the Dead, the sequel, is pretty punk rock. They brought in some Italian producers who gave them some money, and they gave them a lot of a leeway. They kind of let them do their own thing, and they made a movie about capitalism. Day of the Dead now is getting a little bit more like establishment, but they're using it to their advantage. They are like still able to do something kind of cool, but they've sold out a little bit, but for a good reason.
Yeah, and they wanted to do more, but their budget ended up getting cut for Day of the Dead. I think George Romero actually wanted to do a whole lot more in that film, and so then they were kind of forced to stick to the underground sets.
And then Land of the Dead, I would say, is like they sold out, like, and not in a bad way, just in like a they wanted health insurance way. Like, they just, they agreed to do whatever the corporate overlords wanted. It, like, because don't forget, like, the difference between Day of the Dead and Land of the Dead is like 15, 20 years. Nobody was pounding on George's door to make another zombie movie. George was like, can I make another movie, please? I'd like to make another movie, please. And they finally were like, well, can you do it for this amount of money? And he was like, I absolutely can make a movie for that amount of money. Yes, I can. And did. And that's exactly that's what Land of the Dead.
Who played the villain in Land of the Dead? It was
that would be Dennis
Hopper. I love the fact that both Dennis Hopper and John Leguizamo were on the same set again, because I'm sure their conversations were mostly just how much Super Mario Brothers was the worst project I've ever worked on.
I have a feeling that is like
that bonded them for life.
I have a feeling that they like, the one thing that happened was when they like bumped into each other in the bathroom, and they were both like, we're not going to talk about Super Mario Brothers, right? And you're like, you're absolutely right, we are absolutely not. And that was the only time it came up, was because it's also one of those things. I have a feeling everybody else wants to pop that cork. Everybody else is like, you gonna ask Leguizamo about Mario? You gonna ask him
Leguizamo is the only one alive between the three between Mario and
I mean, especially now Leguizamo is like almost the only one you can ask. Hey, what's Luigi's last name? Come on, man, like, tell us. Like, I know like, so yeah. Yeah, I have a feeling they in fact did not talk about that at all because, like, I don't know, in the same way that like a bunch of Vietnam vets don't bring it up. They're just like, we're not going to talk about that thing that haunts us. Oh yes, no, absolutely. Let's not talk about it.
Yeah, I think it's also fascinating to think that Night of the Living Dead could have possibly been like not even a zombie film at all. One of the ideas that was pitched when they were writing the script was just aliens coming to Earth in search of flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Like just in search of human flesh. So, which I think is where the cause of the zombie virus came from, is the because it was supposed to be like a satellite from Saturn
So
that
like
crashed onto Earth.
So like this is where you can start to very much see like the 1950s origins of this, because like they talk about it in the movie as radiation. You overhear all of these newscasts, which is very like Orson Welles' War of the Worlds.
Yeah.
They talk about it like, oh, there's the like, all right. So something a lot of our listeners might not realize. So like, the BBC, the British Broadcasting System.
Nah, never heard of it.
Yes. Okay. So there are documentaries that were made by the BBC in the 1950s and 60s that postulated the idea that there are canals on Mars. And that's just like a fallout of our telescopes were crap, and that B, there was water, like in terms of like frost and ice that were on Mars that melted, and when those melt, they make curvy bits that look like canals. And when you look at curvy bits from millions of miles away with terrible telescopes, you might say, holy crap, is that a canal? And the answer is no. But at the time, you didn't necessarily know. This is just to point out that television, movies, and our understanding of science and the universe are much more recent than most people think about. Because the BBC, that thing with David Attenborough, who always talks about penguins and shit, said on television, the canals of Mars, like motherfuckers were on Mars building canals. So what I'm saying is at the time, like everything with radiation just made it bigger. Like we're talking a slightly precursor to Godzilla. We're talking It. We're like it wasn't that long ago. So one of a great story about an actual journalist when NASA was like, we're going to send people to the moon. An actual journalist who is paid money by an actual newspaper, like this was his job. He said, what are you going to do if you get to the moon and it's all made out of quicksand?
Wait.
Yeah. And they were like, I guess we'll cross that bridge if we come to it, bro.
In case you were wondering, for how long has 40?
Like, I'm not going to lie. There was a substantial amount of my childhood discussing quicksand. So I understand, like, and
yeah, we thought we were told to prepare for quicksand and lava in our childhood.
Yes, no, exactly. And
I have come across neither.
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed.
Yes, like, and that's what, like, we were both prepared for this. So I also understand where this journalist was coming from. But let's also be clear, the moon is not fucking made out of quicksand, you dork. Like, so that's where this movie's scientific origins are. and it's combined with EC Comics and ghouls and 1950s spacemen and radiation making all sorts of wild stuff, do all sorts of wild things.
Yeah.
And
when they got to those segments, like filming like the news folks, like there's some footage of filming that was done in Washington, D.C. Not a single permit was had for that filming, by the way, but they wanted shots from like specifically from Washington, D.C. so they could make the film look like it had a higher budget than it really did. So yeah, they hopped it, like they got a super official car. They made it look official just by putting little flags on it.
Mhm.
And that's about, which you absolutely cannot do in Washington, D.C., at least not without a permit. But they got away with it. But no, like it brings the film a little bit more to earth, so to speak, if I may, which is also interesting that George Romero also did shorts for Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's another thing that I didn't realize before researching this. I'm like, oh shit, I wonder which shorts he did.
Now, David, there is something with Night of the Living Dead that I think you specifically have an expertise in, and I want to get your professional opinion on this. Now, when Dwayne Jones is boarding up the house, how are his carpentry skills? Is and on top of it, is there like any advice you as a professional carpenter would have for someone who needs to improvise boarding up their windows indoors in their house? Like what pieces of furniture would people maybe not think of using? I want you to really take us for a walk through how you as a professional carpenter would protect you and yours in your homestead.
I would start by saying that 2 to 3 nails does not a sturdy door hanging make.
Okay.
Yeah, like what was it? Like Barbara finally decides to get up and help Ben nail a door to a door. But you see him like literally only just put like 3 of the smallest nails I've ever seen in the door, which by the way would not be long enough to really make it stay up. So it's just like you're putting tissue paper against the door. Like they're gonna push that thing over like super easy.
Finishing nails does not seem like a good way to thwart a zombie attack.
No, which I mean, like to be fair, I'm sure. I mean, I can't imagine the family that wasn't in the house didn't make a trip to the hardware store first. So like, you know, I get where they're coming from. I feel like at one point they boarded up a doorway where the door swings open away from the boards, which I noticed that at one point. I'm like, is that what I'm seeing? Because I feel like that's a bit of a flaw in the plan.
That to me seems like a real, all right, guys, look, we can either board this door up correctly, or we can all go use the bathroom on the regular, because we all agree we have to use this door from like a production standpoint. So who here wants to use the bathroom? Okay. Who here wants this door to be factually accurate to the idea of zombies attacking? No one?
Yeah.
No one at all? All right. Well, it turns out that we're boarding it up the other way so we can all use the bathroom. Moving on. Like that is 100% what that decision says to me.
I would also argue that nobody in this movie has a good survival plan. Like at all.
I mean, well, all right. Nobody in this movie has any preparation at all. Everybody is just like getting by with what happens to be directly in front of them at any particular moment.
Yeah.
Like it's like the Purge movies. Like even in the first Purge movie, where the guy sells security devices, even though he's like, it's murder Halloween and I got all like caught out here. like I wasn't expecting Murder Halloween to happen on the one day a year that it happens. Like everybody just finds this house.
But now it's the forever purge.
Yeah, well, but it's nobody's house. Like that's one of the things in the movie that is never discussed. Whose house is this?
I suppose probably the dead person at the top of the stairs.
I mean, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I guess why not? But like, because like, there is never a discussion of like, what do we do if they come home? Like, because right, like, don't get me wrong.
It's like, what are you guys doing? Get out of my house.
I mean, yeah, if we all agree there is a zombie apocalypse, then yes. If you come home, you're like, well, of course you're squatting in my house. Why? Have you seen all the zombies eating people out there?
How did you get in here?
Yeah, I would also be squatting in just some.
It's like, oh, dude, you boarded that one window up terribly, man.
Yeah,
like, I just pushed right through that.
Yeah, like I mean, like imagine you come home and found just some person has boarded up your house. Also, let's just assume it's 1968. This is a person of color. And you're like, I don't see color here in this situation. I'm sure he's just, everything that's happening here is totally above. Come on, man. Like, that'd be the first thing you call, like, you'd be like, look, man, I got home. There's a guy in my house. He boarded the whole thing up. He's screaming about zombies. He seems real mad. I mean, I guess he's black. I mean, that's not the first thing I saw.
Cops get there in 5 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's. I want to give Romero the benefit of the doubt, but yes,
I feel like this is also like the 1960s, and at this point, like,
oh no, it is.
Zombie
it's not like the 1960s, David.
Yeah, I mean,
it is absolutely the 1960s.
No, but like now that we have hundreds and hundreds of zombie apocalypse films in our repertoire, I would say that the easiest apocalypse to survive would most likely be the zombie apocalypse. But I feel like people in the 60s weren't talking about what they do during a zombie apocalypse all that much.
I mean, part of it is also that every time you make a movie about the zombie apocalypse, you are framing it as the people who survived the zombie apocalypse. Like, that's like the thing about an apocalypse is that it kills you.
It kills most of the people.
Yeah. I mean, like Mad Max happened to most people in Mad Max, but like, you can't just shoot a movie that's a corpse for 90 minutes, just laying there in the heat, getting all stank. Like, that's not a movie. So you have to concentrate on like the people who survived. So that means either like, you know, Max Rokitansky or you know, the people who survived the zombie apocalypse, or the dudes from the dude from The Road. Like, you know, The Road doesn't work if you make it about his dead wife, because then it's just a movie about a gravestone. Which, I mean, like, cool. I would be one of those weirdos who'd be like, let's watch this. Like you mean it's like Rubber?
When does the audience member pick up the phone?
Yeah, except it's about a gravestone. All right, cool. Like let's try it. Well, I've never seen a movie like that before. That's why.
Sure, why not?
Yeah, sure. You know. Oh, how are you going to move that chess piece? Orange. Wait, what? You can't. That's not. You just said a color. That's not a thing. But, yeah, I mean, it is. But yeah. Hey, so yes. Anyway, everyone should see this movie. It's fantastic.
Yeah, if you haven't by now, like, if you have a friend who has not seen this movie, I think you owe it to them as their friend to introduce them to some kick-ass cinema.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it's. I mean, like, so one of the things I mentioned kind of up top that I don't know if you know. So there are 2 franchises that this movie spawned because of a fight between the producers. You have your Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Diary of the Dead. All of those won the right in court to be called Of the Time of Day, the Dead, or Diary, I guess. But the other producer won the right to say Of the Living Dead.
Yeah, and that was Russo, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they had a disagreement over what they wanted the sequel to be, and ultimately,
and you get a very distinct difference in the zombie like mythologies going forward with Return of the Living Dead, Night of this City of the Living Dead, and any of the Living Deads. You get a corpse that is always alive, even the littlest bits. So like if you cut a thing in half, both halves are alive. But with Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, like the Romero universe, like you get the, once you shoot it in the brainstem death version of zombies. So there's like a, from a, if you want to just talk about like from a prepping standpoint, like a wild difference between the Romero zombies, which you just need to shoot in the head and they are done, and then the Of the Living Dead zombies, which like if you taxidermy a cat, the cat will come back to life. Like wild, like a wild difference in the anatomy, cryptozoology of the particular animals, but like, or the particular animals. But yeah, so yeah, that just another interesting little side bit. David, do you have other things to say about this movie?
You know, I mean, it's a zombie film. You could talk zombies all day long and not run out of stuff to talk about. But no, I think for the most part, I'm good. I will also put like there's a real interesting fact. It took until 1999 for the film to be deemed culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress. So, which I also think is a huge honor for this film, is the idea of like, you know, this is the Citizen Kane of horror films, like easily.
It is. I would agree in that, like, Citizen Kane is Citizen Kane, not because it's the best, most entertaining movie, but because of everything that it did first and like before everything else. And this is kind of the same thing where like, like, no one's saying there aren't flaws, but like, I mean, this has like every trope I can think of, whether it's the newscaster, whether it's the you know, oh, don't worry, this person's definitely not been infected by a zombie, but like the zombie bite parts of things, the shitty white guy, the Karen, like there's just like so much that this does first, and it also like in a not showy manner, if that makes sense. Like it like it's not making a big deal about all these little things that it's doing. It's just kind of casually doing them. And you kind of can't not think of making a zombie movie now with like half of this stuff in it.
Yeah, no, 100%, absolutely. You know, you got the tropes of the young boyfriend and girlfriend who don't make it to the end. It's if you were to watch all of the zombie films and then at the end of it watch Night of the Living Dead wouldn't seem that special to you.
Yeah.
But the significance of this film is that it is the reason why all the zombie films that you enjoy
are the zombie films that you enjoy.
Yeah. Like I would argue that Shaun of the Dead would not exist without Night of the Living Dead.
Actually, the movie that I think about this the most is like, this movie is Lethal Weapon. like, yeah, there's like a buddy cop movie or two before Lethal Weapon. And then after Lethal Weapon, like there's buddy cop movies. And like it's so clear of a thing. And like you kind of can't believe that there was buddy cop movies beforehand, but there were.
Yeah, you wouldn't think it, but there were. But yeah, no, I think that's about all I have to say about this one.
Well, David, question then. What movie are you putting on the pedestal for our people of Instagram to vote upon?
You know, Ken,
what's the movie you have?
Because there's a whole bunch now. Is Dead Alive is not on Shudder, correct?
David, I feel like you have one job, and that's to look up what's on Shudder and then pick one movie and then say it out loud.
Okay. Because if it wasn't Dead Alive, I've been looking a little bit here and there between because I'm like, wait, I thought it was on here, but I guess it's not. Dead Alive is not on here. So the second one that I had prepped up is the cult hit Basket Case.
Okay, great. No, that's great. I'm looking forward to that. I am going to go ahead and put up Reanimator.
Oh shit!
Have you seen Reanimator?
I've seen Reanimator. I haven't seen it for a very, very. Same with Basket Case. I haven't seen either for a very, very long time.
It is one of the 2 or 3 good H.P. Lovecraft movies because it does what all good H.P. Lovecraft movies do, which is completely abandon everything that is H.P. Lovecraft and just kind of go for the vibes.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it good. Like The Thing works that way. Alien works that way. Almost every single movie that like tries to do a straight adaptation of H.P. Lovecraft is not so good. So yeah, we will see what the people of the internet have to say about whether we're going to see Reanimator or Basket Case.
Yeah, both hits within their own right.
Indeed.
And yeah, both similar but very different.
Indeed. Well, then, ladies and gentlemen of the internet, good night, good luck, and most importantly.
But wait, Ken,
what?
Before
we have plugs.
Before we tell people to go fuck themselves,
yes,
Ken, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and email at Ken Stagnick, KenStachnik, and that's at Instagram or at Gmail or at Twitter. You can find us at Shutter Show. Again, at all the various things. You can email us at that as well. And David, we have an Instagram that's a little weird, right? That's Shutter_show.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is at Shutter_show. And that is where we always run that. That is where we will be running the polls for this whole season.
Yes. So please tell us what you think. Engage, subscribe, like. I'm not going to encourage you to dislike things, but I guess engagement is engagement. We're on YouTube, also Shutter Show, where you can see us talk while we talk. If that's a thing that you want to do.
I'm convinced that you need to write a reaction video of the founding fathers reacting to everyday modern stuff.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, we'll just all right. All I need now is to find live footage of the founding fathers writing the Constitution, and then I will respond to that. Only if it's historically accurate.
But yeah, hop up on our stories, vote for the next film, and yeah.
And so until next week, which you'll probably get an episode kind of sooner rather than later because this one was later. So I guess we'll try and make the next one sooner, right?
Yeah. We're gonna aim for Monday latest.
Mondays,
Tuesday.
Indeed. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Good night. Good luck. Go fuck yourself. Goodbye.
Go fuck yourself.